Hi, this is Bill, and I'm the owner and website developer for applemothership.com. The website doesn't have any formal relations with the company Apple. I bought the website earlier this year in January as sort of like an introductory manual technical guide to Apple Campus 2, because I felt like not a lot of people knew much about the project. And I thought it was interesting, all the work that went into it. So about 6 months after I started working on the website, a mysterious video appeared from Apple Corporate that kind of breaks down how the name Apple Mothership came about at the planning board that Steve Jobs went to, with a few introductories from Norman Foster, who's the architectural project manager for the corporate campus. Lisa Jackson, Obama's former czar for the EPA, is in charge of the green projects and the solar panels and all that. And David Muffley, who is the senior arborist from Stanford, I believe, and he's going to be in charge of the fruit trees that are on the campus. And my one recommendation to Apple would be, if they can, to put the fruit trees in rows, because 145 acres is a lot of grass to cut, and the trees that were originally on the orchards, if you research them, were in rows. But you know, it might look nice to have them thrown all about too, to just make more work for other people to cut the grass. And my final video is going to be on culture. A lot of people are critical, and there is a lot of criticism for Apple and their culture. Here where I live in Maryland, we have a lot of government buildings that are sick buildings, and the code for not very good buildings and paying a lot for them, or buildings that are old and perhaps have asbestos in them, and leaky water from the air conditioning. And so the campus, when it's finished later 2016, will provide a healthier work environment for the employees. And it's a good start to helping improve Apple's culture. I want to do a brief introductory on Dan Price, who's in charge of Gravity, which is a payment system that tries to make the cost of businesses handling credit online, or to try and make more economical for businesses to process the transactions. And what Dan Price did was, some of the employees confronted him about their culture and saying that he was offensive to the employees and abusing them, because a lot of the employees were making like $10 an hour. So Dan Price decided he was going to make his minimum yearly wage for every employee at his company $70,000 a year, and this is in Washington State. So I thought it was a good addition to Apple's culture to mention that, and I would recommend that Apple's corporate people try to meet with this guy and talk to him and learn more about his company, and maybe even buy some of his company's stock as an investment for Apple, because Apple still needs a lot of help with their culture now that Steve Jobs is dead. And I know that heard a rumor that Steve Jobs talked to Woz before he passed away, trying to get him to come back. And one thing that Woz is very humble. He'll say like all the things he doesn't know, but he really knows about corporate, just culture in general. And you know, I think he likes to travel and do presentations and stuff. But that would be good for Apple too, to try and get Woz to come back and speak like one day a week or one day a month for the company on a limited basis, just to try to figure out little ways to improve things. But in general, an Apple Campus 2 is completed. The employees will have more green space, fresh air in the buildings, fresh healthy meals. And somebody had mentioned recently, Trip from Electronic Arts, that he wanted to work for Steve Jobs. I applied for a job about 15 years ago with Electronic Arts, and this guy who looked just like Trip, he kind of comes off as a homeless person, interviewed me. And he was like, well, we pay $10 an hour and we hire from temporary agencies. And like Electronic Arts is pretty well known in Maryland for their initial startup. Their software testers all made about $100,000 a year, bought really nice houses and cars and all that. And so I would say it's unrealistic to expect that if you're starting off in a tech industry. However, on the same rate, if you go and you apply for somebody and you work really hard to go to college, walk to work, walk to college and all that, and then you meet somebody like not the other guy, but Trip from Electronic Arts, and he says, well, we'll pay you $10 an hour and you'll get health care coverage in 6 months or whatever. There's no guarantee we'll keep you. Like, that's an insult to your employees if your companies treat you like that. And criticism can be hard to take. Apple has a whole page of criticism on Wikipedia, from their work factories in China to their store policies. Those stores, they pay about $1 over the e-cola for poverty. And so at a time now where Apple's looking to maybe improve on things like their App Store, which the App Store is fine, but there's no people between the App Store and the Apple Store and your apps. And so, like, another question I have for Apple is their CEOs, because I'm sure they'll watch this video, is what percentage of people do you have that own an iPhone and they have no applications on it from the App Store or whatever? Like, how do you introduce those people to using applications or maybe developing or growing as a person and that's fine if somebody out there has an iPhone and they just want to use it to search internet, take pictures and what have you, but maybe they want a game or program to help them manage something. One of the things I have on my phone is real neat, is a QRC code reader, and it'll scan those little kind of like square barcodes and send you to a website or whatever. There's so much that you could do for that, even with a business, but yet there's this whole sector of marketing out there for the App Store that's incomplete, because there's the culture is empty in between Apple and the customers. But yet, if you ask them, Angela Arenditz did a video recently on this, on culture. And so I'm glad that people at Apple are talking about culture, and I give you a little star on your worksheet for talking about culture. You got to bring it up to the next level, because if Steve Jobs was alive, he would bring it up to the next level. It's not hard to imagine how Steve Jobs and Steve Woz got to be friends and start a business, because they're so different, yet there's so much the same as far as being able to have an intellectual discussion about, and sometimes they would argue, but having an intellectual discussion about why things are the way they are and how you create change. So it's really kind of a shame that they didn't have a person kind of in the middle like Wayne Madison when they first started to try and regulate the intellectual discussion between the two guys, because they just seem like both phenomenally amazing people. But sometimes when you at work, you can have they call it like personality conflicts, and I've had it before where my bosses just hired friends for the job and the person didn't know absolutely what they're doing. But what if you have two people at work and they're coming from two different places, and then you need to regulate like how these two people get along or whatever. It's pretty interesting. So that's all. Website's going to come down on January 14th. I'll still own a domain, but the original price to start the website and everything was introductory price of $27, and I managed that for the whole year. It was my project budget. Now that money's going to go up a little bit, and so with Apple's culture being the way it is, I can't really see paying like $100 to keep the website up for an additional year. It's something for me to think about, because once the building gets finished, 2016, people probably traffic to the website will go up, and I wanted to have a big thanks to Myatt Hertz. I always call him Miss because his name seems like it's spelled Miss online. That's his username, for he does it anyway, but providing drone footage to see the development of the building, and he lets me use it on the website, and it just makes it fun because as you click through the website, you'll be able to um, see some of the personal thoughts from the project as well as the construction of the building. And then, you know, I'm going to kind of leave this final segment on corporate culture, and that's the number one thing at Apple to work on. If I was Apple, like a couple suggestions there, maybe find yourself a chief executive officer in charge of culture, and then you would have to figure out what culture you have, and then discuss it with your employees and find out where you want to go. Because if your culture interferes with the way you conduct business with your customers, and then the main goal of your culture is just to make money, you're kind of missing out on a large margin or segment of your culture. And that even includes Tesla, because Tesla is poaching employees from Apple. Apple's poaching employees from Tesla. So your culture is sort of becoming a culture of stealing. Even though you're stealing or borrowing employees, or you could say it's legitimate or whatever, we offered these employees money to come here or there, and they came of their own free will. In a sense, it's a culture of theft. And that's just my opinion, but there's been a couple of lawsuits won recently in regards to patent theft on CPUs and such, and so it's some pretty rough criticism when coming on the end of the website, and but some pretty good comments too as far as improving the work environment for the employees. So I wouldn't say it's all just, you know, kind of a big dump in of let's beat up on Apple.